And well, good afternoon. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sales Vitamin Podcast. You are in for a treat today. We've got a local organization, a CEO, Blake Johnston of Outbound View, here to talk with us about sales training, and things from his perspective in his company. Blake, great to have you today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. You as well.
Before we get started, give everybody kind of a brief introduction, or whatever type of introduction you want on what your company does here in Nashville, and are you a national company, regional company, and just what you do and the type of organizations you work with.
For sure. Yep. So we're fairly new to Nashville. So I've been here a couple years, originally from Nebraska. Our team, we really help B2B companies with everything top of funnel, but most of it relates to inside sales. So we do things like set up inside sales teams. We do outsource sales development. So pretty much, once an opportunity is found, that's typically where we step away and our clients kind of take it from there and close deals. But we're all about helping companies find more opportunities.
Okay, so you're on that. That's a good place to be. You're about driving revenue and growth, and helping companies find opportunities and clients, customers for their product or service. One thing I noticed, you have a motto that says "Discover, Design, and Deploy." I was looking at that, kind of the 3Ds. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's funny, you come up with like every single company that I've ever worked for or work with has some version of like a circle that's the customer life cycle,
yeah,
right? It's like you start here, you go through here, and then you're a customer. And it doesn't matter whether it's like HR or compliance or IT, like everybody has that.
yeah,
And so when we were coming up with our branding and doing other things, like we have to create our version of that, obviously, as well.
yeah.
That's where we got the 3Ds. So
Well, let's start off. How do you organize your team there? How are you structured from a sales
yeah.
performance standpoint to drive that outbound?
For sure. So, Outbound View, how we're structured is, we have inside sales folks that are, do some work for our team, but most of the work they do is on behalf of our customers. So, we're building lists, we're building messaging, we're making calls, we're sending emails, and most of it's on behalf of our customers trying to find new opportunities. As I think about inside sales orgs specifically, though, I mean, it is all over the map. We work with some companies that report up to marketing. We work with some companies that have no marketing function and we report up to sales. And, when I think about structure and how you build organizations that are really good at finding new opportunities and winning new logos, in my opinion, it just comes down to who cares the most, right? Whether it's sales or marketing or whoever, it is really tough to build that muscle of where you have an organization that can go find new opportunities. And there's a lot of different ways to do it, and it's extremely nuanced. Every industry is a little bit different. So the typical consulting answer is it just depends.
Yeah.
So it so much depends on your brand and other things. But we're used to working with companies that need flexibility, and they need us to come in and fit into what they're doing versus the opposite, that I'm trying to fit into our exact process.
So it's interesting. Some of the companies that you work with, or maybe all the companies that you work with, where are they struggling in that outbound process? Is it they just don't know how to go get leads, or they just don't know where to start? Where do you come in and just add that value?
Yeah, it's funny. There are in every campaign like 20 failure points in every outbound campaign. And there's just so many places you can go wrong. So it depends. Most of the companies come to us in one of two areas. Area one, newer company, startup, trying to see if outbound is even a fit. Like, is this something that's going to be a way that they can scale their business? And we can come in, make more calls, experiment faster than typically an internal team. So that's one area. The second area a lot of companies come to us is they figured something out and they just need more quantity, right? They don't want to hire internally necessarily, and they need someone to just come on quick and help them. But, you know, the biggest areas we see people struggle are going after the right companies.
Okay.
They're going after everybody, and it just doesn't work. I mean, you really got to niche it down. So going after companies, building data, like really clean data, good phone numbers, good email addresses, everything else is extremely difficult to do. And so, most companies just keep hiring more and more people and they never fix their data problem. So, targeting, data, and messaging are the three big buckets. It's tough to put together compelling messaging because everybody can send, you know, 100 emails a day with with automation out there. So it's just there's so much noise. You know what I mean?
So that's kind of the less is more when you look at it from a prospecting standpoint. Where it's interesting. You said, well, they're trying to boil the ocean.
Yeah.
Rather than narrowing down. The riches is in the niches, how they say it, and get those
Yep.
those uh, those people that are really likely to buy from you. So let's take an example. Let's look. So you've been hired by a local company here in Nashville. Let's say,
Hmm.
hypothetically, we'll call it ABC company, and you're going to be an outbound consultant for them. One of the things I've seen you have, one of your products is the pass view approach.
Yeah.
Take me through that. Take the listeners through how you would work with a company in that approach and how that works.
Yeah. So, past view is an approach that we do on outbound where we help companies find the people that have left their existing customers and could buy from them again. Right. So,
Very practical.
yeah, everyone gets that inbound lead that comes to them, or lucky people get the inbound lead that comes to them, and they're like, hey, we used to work with you at X company, right? We loved what you were doing there. I'm now here. I run sales. I run whatever the group is. Let's set up a time to call. And when you're a salesperson and you get that lead, it's just so much easier. There's all of the trust there's already trust built there. They know what you do. There's a lot less like selling the entire time. You're like, well, you know what we do? You brought us in. What do you want us to help you with? And so we help companies find more of those because most companies lose track of them. And then we build outbound campaigns to set up meetings. So for a company like that, we would come in and say, who are your existing customers? Who are the people you're trying to target? Let's get some of your internal data like your CRM and others. And then our team goes off and does, hundreds of hours of research. And then what we bring you back is for most of the companies, like thousands of people who have left your clients, over the past 2 to 3 years. And we build campaigns at them and they convert at a way different level as you would expect because, their previous employer used your service or product.
Yeah, and that's practical because that transfers to almost any industry. I mean, inside, outside, whatever the industry is, you've got those contacts that are at other companies or at other organizations that used to be with you or another client. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we stumbled upon it. It's kind of funny. So I talked about data. We do an unbelievable amount of data cleansing. So we'll take lists, we'll make sure that they don't bounce from an email perspective. We'll call through every phone number before it gets to our inside salespeople. And we built this little internal software tool to help speed that process up. And while we were building it, a few existing clients, we were running their data through it. And I'm like, that VP of marketing is now there. That VP of marketing is now there. And we're like going through the software. And I was like, why don't we have why don't we have programs to chase all these people down? Because one client had hundreds of people that were at big companies in like with power roles. And we're out here like fishing in cold lead land. And we have thousands of leads just sitting right underneath our nose. And so we did stumble upon it a little bit. And fortunately, we just started to do it more with existing clients. Then we ran it through a couple beta clients, and now it's a full offering of ours. It's so much easier than going cold. It's not even close.
Yeah, yeah. There's the ratio there is probably pretty strong. What's so you do that. What about how you connect? Where do you see the most success in your sales team? Because when I started, I won't date myself, but you handed out brochures and you hit the streets. That's how you
Yeah.
connected. Now you've got so many sales channels with email, video email, Twitter, LinkedIn. What's your thought process and where do you see your biggest success?
Yep. I mean, we're like most where it's a bunch of different channels. What we find, and we're really good at data cleansing on the phone side. So I think we have much more success on phone than most
Yeah.
because we spend a lot of money and time into it. And so we know who's picking up and, we have good numbers. So uh, we see really good luck with phone. We see email just going down every single year. It's going to get tougher. And so we still book a lot of meetings over email. We do video email. We do custom. LinkedIn is just, so easy right now compared to most channels because you can send videos through messaging. You can leave voicemails. You can do a lot of things on LinkedIn with first connections that,
Right.
you know, will outperform email all day long and custom email. So we do a combination of both. And then we also do mailers. So we do handwritten notes, we'll do custom mailers. And I don't know, for us and most inside sales teams, like they make their money in the follow-up process. So you might make a cold call the first time, maybe you reach someone, you leave a voicemail, you send an email, maybe they click. Like what you do when they click or when they show something else, the other custom paths you take them down, I think is where most inside sales teams, will have the most success. It's not the we're going to make 10,000 calls and you're just going to get a bunch of meetings. Like you will pick up meetings, but everyone's addressable market runs out at some point, in the B2B world. So nurturing programs through all those other channels is, where we try and focus.
Yeah. What do you think separates from a sales standpoint? What separates the top performers you see in your outbound industry from the ones that maybe aren't as good? What do you see? What are those traits and characteristics? I would call them sales vitamins that you
Yeah.
see in those top performers.
So business acumen's a big one.
Okay.
Um, and it's really tough to describe, right? But people with really good business acumen are usually really good at messaging because they can kind of get in the mind of what that person is facing and then they build their messaging around it. So that's one. Detail orientation is a big one because you're dealing with lots of prospects. It takes a lot of organization and you're constantly having to follow up. So, everyone knows the rep whose sales force is just a complete disaster. Like that turns into a problem when you're in inside sales and your only job is finding new opportunities. Well, somebody asks you to follow up in a month. Like if you miss the follow up because you are unorganized, like that's a problem. So business acumen, detail orientation, drive like anyone or any sales position. Like everyone says don't measure activity. Everyone, pushes against don't look at dials, don't look at number of emails. But it almost always works out that the people that do the most activity of the right activities always outperform the people that don't, right? And that comes
Yeah.
down to drive.
Yeah.
There's just you can teach that by engaging people and making them be interested in what you're doing, but some of it's innate, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, it's just they have it or they don't.
Yeah. I've had two sales authors and experts and differentiation on the show so far. And what would you say from Outbound View standpoint, your company, how do you differentiate from the other outbound organizations that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we are purposefully small. Like we want to be a niche player. Like we want to work on projects where we know that they can succeed. Most of the players in the outbound world turn into big call centers and they
Okay.
can't afford not to take on clients. Like client comes in, might be a fit, might not be a fit. They have to take them on. I mean, you know, 30% of what we do in intro calls on inbound are basically convince people that an outsourced, inside sales team isn't going to work. Like it's just not going to work. There's certain instances where it isn't a fit. So we pick the right customers. I think we're really good at that. We're really good at hiring and training. And we're a small team that can be agile. And once you get to a certain size, there's just no way to do it. If you have 50 outbound clients that you're working for, like it's almost impossible to hire good enough project managers
Yeah.
and salespeople not to just churn through clients. It's really difficult.
Yeah. I noticed culture's big for you and your
Yeah,
organization. How do you, what are some things you do to drive that?
for sure. I mean, there's a lot of things that you do. I mean, for the most part, I think culture and leadership kind of is built through trust. I mean, if you have trust figured out, pretty much everything else falls in place.
Right.
So, that's a big thing for us. Flexibility is a big thing for us. We're a fully remote team. We all have somewhat of a work-life balance, if that's
Yeah.
possible, and you can't leave the house. So, we try and hire people who are genuinely just nice, good people that enjoy this world. If you don't enjoy the prospecting world, if you don't enjoy the sales world, or you don't enjoy the marketing world, then you're not going to like it here.
Yeah.
That's just what we're doing every day. So a little bit of hiring, you know, some attempts at good leadership development, and working with the right people.
Yeah. What are, from a technology standpoint, what are some of the tools that you use to drive that prospecting and even your workforce?
Yeah.
What are some
For
tools that you're using?
So, I mean, our base is Salesforce, like most.
Yeah.
That's kind of our database of record. We have a couple different dialers. We use a tool called Orem. We use a tool called FrontSpin. So,
Okay.
depending on who we're going after, we have a couple different dialers. Our sales enablement tools, Outreach.io.
Okay.
We're starting to use different services for mailers and other things like that. But we have a pretty basic technology stack. I mean, everything kind of works together. And then we have, marketing automation, and we have ways to capture people on the website and some of those types of things. But, outside of Sales Navigator, Outreach, Salesforce, and dialers, that's where we spend most of our time.
Yeah. So you've kept it simple, kept it kind of compact.
For
Um,
sure.
Interested to get your thoughts on the millennial and Gen Z workforce.
Yeah.
What you think about, because I was talking with someone else a couple of weeks ago. Those are the future buyers. They're the future sales performers. What's your thought process on that? Those two kind of groups that are coming already into the sales world, sales
For
profession.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't see a I think everybody's driven by, being motivated behind something that's inspiring. I was this when I was just out of college, it was the same thing. Like, I had really good managers, worked for a company that was doing cool stuff, and they thought I was different at that point, than
Yeah.
they were as the leaders of the organization. And so there's some things like social. There's a reason LinkedIn's working a lot better. Everybody's used to using it. It's a bigger network. There's some things like that, but I don't know. I think if you're compensating people in the right way, if you're motivating them in the right way, if you have some type of mission of why you do what you do, like, people just, they get behind it. I mean, for us, it's, I've always thought it was cool, and the reason I started Outbound View, it's like, I always thought prospecting was fairly easy. Like, I always thought closing deals was a heck of a lot harder than prospecting. And if you give people these tools and you give small companies, new opportunities, like, this turns into tens of thousands of dollars for sales reps and
Yeah.
owners that can do different things with their business. I've always thought that was really cool. And that's kind of what our team's passionate about as well.
Have you had success, or have you seen success maybe taking someone that doesn't have a sales background, bringing them into your organization and training them to sell professionally? Or do you typically like to see someone with some experience that comes into the organization?
No, well, we like to see someone with B2B inside sales experience for our inside sales roles.
Right.
But, when I think inside sales, it's a lot more messaging and writing and empathy and things like that than it is your, like, hardcore, I'm going to make 1,000 dials a day
Right.
type person. I mean, there's a little more art to it, I think, than I think there's always been art to it, but specifically inside sales now versus 3 or 4 years ago, there's a lot more art to it, a
Yeah.
lot more creativity. So we do look for people in those areas, but no, it doesn't. The person that heads up our operations group and kind of heads up a lot of what we do and does all of our training internally. Like he sold cell phones, as his
Oh,
first real kind of job. I mean, so as long as you get people that are passionate about what they do and kind of understand what the customer's going through. I mean, those are the biggest
yeah.
problems we're trying to solve for, you know?
Yeah. I think you're seeing an end to the, hey, let's bang out a script that you call and just do the same script to 500 people each week or whatever. I think
Yeah.
you're exactly right. That creativity, the empathy, and being able to tell that story, the outbound view story and what we're about is part of that sales process.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, unless you sell a widget and you can sell it to a million people, you run out of an addressable market at some point,
Yeah.
so you need to do more with a smaller market as everything gets niched down. Not everybody sells for, you know, the largest CRMs in the world and some of those types of things. So,
Oh yeah.
most of the time B2B ends up being more niche than people think.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. What's your thoughts on your biggest? What do you think the biggest sales training opportunity is for the sales profession right now? And it's kind of a general question, but just from your point of view, where do you think the biggest opportunity for sales training is?
Yep. We work with a lot of sales training companies. I've spent time selling sales training, and we just work in the training world a lot.
Okay.
What'll be interesting is there's your in-person instructor-led stuff, there's virtual, your Zoom stuff. Uh, but pretty much every sales rep needs a coach, and not all sales managers. I mean, there's all types of stats here, but
Yep.
most sales managers don't spend the majority of their weeks coaching. So that means that if they're not getting it from their organization, these sales reps need to be getting it from somewhere else.
Right.
And we've seen this in our business. Like, we would consider myself and the people in our company good marketers. We have a marketing coach. Like, we have sales coaches. And so scaling coaching at the individual rep level, whether you're finding a mentor or paying for it on your own or getting it from your organization, is the easiest way to enhance your skills as a salesperson.
Oh, yeah. I had a conversation last week. It's funny that you say that, but you look at sales professionals who say, "Well, I get trained once a year." We go to the company annual meeting or whatever, and that isn't even, it doesn't stick. But then you look at these. I've talked with some authors that they're embedded coaches, like you're talking about, with the organization, because I
Yep,
think sales professionals need that. They need that coach, that person that's helping them get better. Now, if you've got a sales manager that's really, really good at that at your organization, that's a plus. But I think you're right. I don't think that's happening in most organizations. Those people are looking at reports and doing those types of things and not leading, motivating, and training.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's pretty much every sales organization should be using some type of recording tool with their outside salespeople so they can listen to a pitch. And
Right.
it's probably, I don't know, Gong and all the companies that do this would know, but it's probably 1%, of all salespeople, less than 1% get actual call feedback. I did a 30-minute call with the prospect. What happened? Like, what was good? What was bad? Those types of things. So yeah, coaching is just something that'll never get old and always works well.
Yeah. One more question for you, but before we do that, before we end, tell everybody where they can get a hold of you, where they can get a hold of the company, and anything you've got coming up in the future that somebody needs to know about.
Yeah, for sure. So you can outboundview.com. You can find everything on our website. You can find me on LinkedIn, just Blake Johnston Outbound View. And yeah, we'd love to connect and love to hear from anyone. And we do a lot of, whiteboard session type things where we just kind of dive in and try and figure out what's going on. So yeah, please reach out if there's anything we can help with.
Awesome. Hey, Last question. I ask everybody this. So you've got a sales professional in your organization, but you can only tell them one thing to help them improve their sales performance. You got one vitamin to give them. What's that one vitamin you talk with them about?
Yep. So it's understanding the buyer. I mean, if they spend all of their time reading descriptions, interviewing the buyer, doing all of those types of things, everything that they build around that, from presentations to messaging to pitches, like most truly don't understand the day to day of who they're selling into and what keeps them up at night and what's terrible about their job, what they love about their job, what their boss wants them to do. So, you know, that's where I would spend all day if I was a salesperson, because everything else, kind of wraps around
Awesome. No, that's a jar full there. They just got a whole jar full of vitamins, not just one.
it. Yep.
Well, Blake Johnston, everybody. He is the CEO of Outbound View here in Nashville, Tennessee. Great to have you. Honored to have you on the show, and appreciate you coming on and just talking some sales vitamins with us.
Thank you so much. I love the podcast. Love the name of the podcast too, because everyone it's a bunch of small little things, right, that make it work out, and I think it's brilliant branding. So
That's
nice
right.
work.